All right, good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Fuller. Yesterday's video was a little slow in uploading, so today I'm going to put two up. Looks like right now people are understanding the new way that I'm putting stuff on Classroom. It's under the classwork, and I'm labeling it required or optional. And I'll get more missing quizzes codes on there today. And you look online, check your grades, see what you're missing. And then hopefully I'll get those codes up today and tomorrow for the ones that you're missing. So even if you're missing codes from the Russian Revolution, World War I think that's as far as anybody's missing, you'll be able to make those up, okay? So, and you might be like, Mr. Fuller, why does it sound like there's noise and seems like you're walking? Well, what I've noticed since quarantine is my daily step count is way down. It used to be like 8,000-9,000, and now like it's like 15 or so. So I'm like, you know what? I gotta start getting more steps in. And it's not that I've been putting on weight, but our clothes dryer has started shrinking our clothes. So anyway, I'm doing today's Google Meet from a treadmill, okay? And that's not like, Mr. Fuller's a fitness crazy. This is like the second time the treadmill's been used, and I think the first one was by accident. So having said that, let's get to World War II. All right, we went over that stuff. Make sure to watch that first video, because that summarizes like World War II in like one day. All right, now, oops. That's the problem with having to hold the Chromebook as I walk. So I can make it stand on the treadmill, but then you get like this view, and that's super weird. So here we go, cause of World War II. What's going on? Yeah, talked about that a little bit yesterday. So basically, if you watched the video from yesterday, World War II is just an extension of World War I. And World War I ends on Armistice Day, November 11th, 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of the year 1911. That's right. And but the treaty that actually ends World War I is the Treaty of Versailles. That was signed June 28th, 1919, exactly 5 years to the day after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. All right, there we go. So how did the Treaty of Versailles lead to World War II? That's a good question. Yeah, there's the treaty. It failed. Oh, I guess the treaty didn't work. And if you remember, Versailles, the last time we talked about it, was the palace, right? Where King Louis and Marie Antoinette lived until they no longer lived. The Treaty of Versailles blamed Germany. And that makes sense because Germany loses World War I. And traditionally, the people who lose a war are blamed and punished. And that seemed to be the way wars went. But here's the problem when they blame Germany. One, it was an embarrassment to Germany, okay? And they were humiliated, and they want to rise to greatness. Also, it forced Germany to pay for the war. Again, when you first think about it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. It's Germany's fault. Let's make them pay for it. Sounds good. Only problem was Germany couldn't pay. So and if you watch the video, they couldn't pay. So in order to help repair their economy, they print more money, prices go up, their money is worthless, and basically the fact that Germany is unable to repay other countries, it creates a big, major worldwide depression. That's why it's a Great Depression. And we don't cover the Great Depression in this class much other than it happened, and it leads to World War II. But you will get that in American history, okay? In addition, with the Treaty of Versailles, the League of Nations was created. If you remember, that was one of Wilson's 14 points. Europeans didn't like 13 of the points, but they liked the League of Nations. America didn't like the League of Nations, but they liked everything else. So America doesn't join. So the League of Nations fails to keep the peace. That was really for two reasons. One is countries like the United States and the Soviet Union did not join the League of Nations, so they were kind of weak, be like trying to put together the Avengers team without Captain America or Iron Man. It's not much of a team. And two, the League of Nations did not have a military. So the League of Nations, when they're trying to discipline Hitler in the 1930s, they're like, you stop that. And Hitler's like, what are you going to do if I don't? And they're like, well, you should just stop. And Hitler was like, 9, which means no in German. So he gets to do what he wants. League of Nations is literally powerless to do anything against it. 2, Japanese expansion. Okay, we talked about this in the other video, that Japan actually invades China in like 1937-ish, and that's when you could really say World War II started, but it doesn't start until 1939 when Germany invades Poland. But Japan was expanding because they wanted more land and resources. They even invaded Manchuria, which is near China, in 1931. And they start taking over resources. So there you go, right there. There's the map. And so they're already expanding. Now, Japan, again, yesterday we looked at those maps, and you're like, wow, it's so tiny. Japan's about the size of California. But remember, that is a large enough landmass to have a sizable population, have plenty of resources, and to be strong militarily. So don't look at China and be like, well, how could Japan defeat China? China's so much bigger. Remember, a lot of that's mountains. There's a big wall, the Great Wall, and Japan was a very powerful country. Okay, they start expanding. 3, the rise of fascism. Yesterday we talked about the dictators. The 3 with the Axis powers being Germany, Italy, and Japan. If you remember, who was the leader of Germany? That's right, Hitler. How about Japan? It's a tougher one. We don't know that one as well. Hideki Tojo was the military leader, and the emperor was Hirohito, okay? And the leader of Italy, Benito Mussolini, okay? So fascism, they're known as fascist dictators. The fascist characteristics: dictator has complete control. They are nationalist / racist, meaning anybody who's not from our country is a loser. They're bad, and we are the best. Dictator having complete control, by the way. There were dictators who were not in the Axis powers. For example, Joseph Stalin was a dictator as well. He just was kind of on our side during World War II, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the big problem with dictators is they demand complete control, which means if you go against a dictator, you will be gone. Okay? They have control of industry and military. Opposition is not tolerated. So there are the dictators of World War II. We got Hitler on the far left. Next to him is Benito Mussolini. And then you got Joseph Stalin from the Soviet Union. And that guy on the far right is Hideki Tojo. Okay? Now, you may be thinking, like, okay, common characteristic of dictators also seems to be a mustache. That's more of a coincidence, but it did seem true during this war. Okay? All right, number 4, Hitler and the Nazis. Hitler, most infamous person in world history. The Nazi Party is well known. And here's what Hitler wants. He wants to reunite German-speaking people. After World War I, some German land got taken. And Hitler's like, we're going to take that land back. So that was one goal of his. It was called the Sudetenland, is the land that he wants. Okay, he wants to punish the Jews and others. He blamed the Jews for World War I. Germany's loss in World War I. He blames the Jews. Now, essentially what he did with the Jews is he made them what's called scapegoats. Basically, he's blaming them for any problem. Germany has a poor economy. He blamed the Jews. Germany lost World War I. Blame the Jews. Germany lost land. Blame the Jews. People are unhappy. Blame Jews. And people bought into that because they were largely unhappy, and Hitler was providing a solution. It's not logical, but that's what he was doing. He wants to create a master race. In fact, actually, all 3 of those guys did. They thought that their race, German and Italian and Japanese, were superior to all other races, which is why, you should watch a movie about this. It's called Race. I think we might watch that tonight. It's on Amazon. It might be on Netflix too. But there's actually, the movie is called Race, and it's all about a race. And the most famous United States Olympian of the time was Jesse Owens, and Germany hosts the Olympics in like 1936. And it's awesome because Hitler's like, finally, we'll be able to show the world that the German people are the superior people and the best athletes. And here comes Jesse Owens and the Americans. And not only was he American, which made Hitler mad, but he was African American. And Hitler, he looked down on the Jewish people. He looked down on people who were called gypsies. He looked down on people who were mentally retarded and homosexuals and anybody who's different than him, but he especially looked down on African Americans. He's like, no chance. And Jesse Owens shows up. He's this African American, and he dominates the 1936 Olympics. So if you get a chance, I highly recommend that movie. It's called Race. I almost guarantee you will enjoy it. If you watch it, you should definitely send me a message and let me know what you think of it, okay? It was made a few years ago. It's got modern music and stuff. You'll enjoy it. There you go. That's his Master Race. Now people are like, wait, Hitler didn't have blonde hair, blue eyes. That's true. He was a lunatic. What can we say? All right. He wasn't well thought through. He was a very powerful and emotional speaker, and he did captivate the attention of the German people. But he was, a psychopath. 4, he wants to make Germany wealthy. He's like, all right, I'm going to fix the economy. And he did kind of a good job at that because he was like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to break the Treaty of Versailles. And we're going to build up our military. So he put a lot of people in the military, and the League of Nations was like, you can't do that. And he's like, well, I just did. What are you going to do to stop me? And then the League of Nations was like, dang, can't stop him. So he puts, all the able-bodied people into the military. And then when you got a military, you got to build tanks and bombs and planes and ships. And so he built up their military, and that's how he made the economy start working again. But then, of course, when you have a giant army and your goal is to take over the world, that's what you try to do. There you go. He increased the military strength. So there again, he was making Germany wealthy. It was ultimately his plan, like I said, to reunite German-speaking people. To do that, he had to conquer land. And he wrote about that in a book that he wrote when he was in jail called Mein Kampf, which means my struggle. Hitler was actually, he was a failed artist. He wanted to be an artist, but that didn't work out. He was also kind of a flunky of World War I, a soldier. So he spent some time in jail, and that's where he writes his book called Mein Kampf. Yeah, they violated the Treaty of Versailles. There's his book. All right, 5, appeasement. I mentioned this yesterday. We have talked about it before. Does anybody remember what appeasement means? Appeasement means trying to keep the peace by giving in to the demands of a ruler. So here, in this case, Hitler was the ruler. If you remember, who was the British prime minister who appeased Hitler? Not Winston Churchill, but Neville Chamberlain. Yeah, and he did a speech called Peace in Our Time. That link right there would bring you to it. Where he says basically okay, look, we signed the Munich Pact with Hitler, where he says, okay, Hitler, we will leave you guys alone. Just promise not to invade any other countries. Okay? And Germany was given the Sudetenland as long as they don't invade other countries. But it was broken when Hitler invades Poland. So there you see Neville Chamberlain on the left, Hitler's on the right. They're shaking hands, and they signed this Munich Pact. The only thing is Hitler had his fingers crossed when he did it. He was a liar, okay? He didn't actually have his fingers crossed, but he did. Oh, boy. He broke the Munich Pact, and that's when World War II officially starts. Is when he goes, see if you see there, that orange territory is the Sudetenland. there were German-speaking people there, and then, but Hitler wants more. He goes into Poland, and Poland actually fought off fairly well, but Hitler's military was just too big, too strong. Basically, he invades Poland first because Poland was relatively weak, so Hitler was a giant. A lot of words would have worked there, but the word I was looking for was bully, okay? Finally, the cause of World War II is the Great Depression. It was a worldwide depression in the 1930s. Countries all over the world are broke. Unemployment was close to 30%. Now, to put that in relation, right now our unemployment is getting somewhere right around 10%. And people are kind of hitting the panic button. Like, that's a big number. It's a big number. 10% is huge. But 30% is enormous, okay? So, let's see here. Come back. Yeah. So unemployment very high, and basically that causes the whole world to go into this kind of panic. It is a worldwide depression, not just in the United States, and that eventually leads to countries feeling like their solutions will be solved by one thing, and one thing alone, and that was war. So we end up having World War II. Okay, there you go. That's today's notes. Hopefully this was recording. Yeah, it is. Okay, so there you go. I'm going to post other stuff, quizzes, codes, and things like that. If you're missing, if you guys have questions, come to today actually we're not having a Google meeting today because I have a different meeting. But if you do if you got a question, send me an email. We can arrange a time for a Google Meet, whatever you want. If you got any questions. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching. And remember, charge your Chromebooks. See ya.